All right. Sorry, it's been a few weeks. A lot of crazy stuff has been going on. I've been working way too much. Yeah, way too much. Anyways, just want to give a couple updates that I've been doing. Yeah, I get on these funny projects with computers, and like, this really bugs me. This should be fixed. This is one of them. I saw someone. I got this for pretty cheap. It's a Lenovo M93P. It's a great little computer for being 2014. It's got an i5. I think it's a quad core in it. I actually installed Mac OS on it. I'm pretty sure I made a video about that. It took me so long to get that working because I just didn't understand Mac OS enough, and all the EFI partitioning and stuff like that. It's just interesting, but it makes sense now. So I'm pretty good with it. I'm still trying to figure out why the USB 3 doesn't work. USB 2 works just fine. So if I plug in a USB 2 device, it works. Plug in a USB 3, it only works on one of the ports. It's in the front. I don't know why. I think it might be because that's only a USB 2 port, so that would make sense. Anyways, I got tired of the really tiny speaker that they put in there. I don't have anymore because I think I tossed it. So I got some speakers out of a MacBook. That's what this is, and this is the subwoofer, and this is one of the basically a tweeter. And then I soldered some extra wiring in there to fit into the header that's on the board itself, so it increased the output like 1,000-fold. Like I couldn't even hear the speaker before. It was so small and crappy. So now I can actually use the speakers and it makes lots of good sound. And it just happened to line up with some of the holes. I did have to, I could have done this probably better, but I had cardboard and it worked just fine. This is the SSD, so the regular hard drive. I just took it out of its shell because then I had plenty of room to work around with. The SSD is only like this long. Actually, it's this long. Instead of it being a 2.5-inch drive. I think I have the drive here. Yeah. So instead of having to have all this in there, I only had to have this little tiny little thing in there. So it made a lot more room. I just used some cardboard to prevent issues with, shocking the components that were beneath it, or shocking the drive itself, or having it rattling around too much. Cardboard seemed to be a good solution to that because it's quick, easy. You just tape it in place, and then you're done. So that was a great little build. Actually, I end up taking it to work with me just because it's such a easy to use thing. Although since I do so much troubleshooting and I'm working at multiple locations, my boss has what's called a headless MacBook. So basically it's missing the screen because the screen's the one I was working on today, I think it's the backlight fuse on the board itself went bad, so that's preventing the display from showing up. So that's the issue there. But I just thought this is a cool little thing. I think it'd be funny to make a slightly bigger case for this, and actually put a decent sized cooler, because it actually has a regular size socket, CPU socket for Intel in there, so you can actually put a bigger cooler on there. And maybe consider putting a bigger drive in there. I don't know. It'd be funny and interesting to do. But that's a great little PC I've been working on. My server I've been working on as well. I got Unraid running just fine. I was having some trouble with Plex recently. I don't know why it wasn't. I need to look at it again. I just haven't taken the time. I need to figure out why my Plex stuff was not loading properly. It like crashed at one point and then wouldn't boot back up. So I just need to beat it with a hammer a little bit longer, and it should be okay. In terms of today, I thought it'd be pretty funny. My backpack's over there. Okay, I got a iPhone 5C. I'm not sure if you guys remember this phone. It was it's right after the iPhone 5 came out. They made these like cheap alternatives, or no, I think it was right when the 5S came out actually. So the problem with it is it only updates to iOS 10 instead of iOS 13. The reason for that is because every version after iOS 10 was 64-bit, and for these phones were not fast enough for the later versions of iOS. So that was interesting. So what I was thinking about doing is taking a 5S that has, like a touch fingerprint reader. I think it updates to iOS 12, I believe. So it's not quite the latest, but it'll do. Yeah, iOS 12. So they just barely dropped it off. But I think I'm going to see if I can take the internals from this and place it in here. And then since I'm not going to be using it for phone calls, I might just rip out the speaker part that's for the earpiece and see if I can combine the speaker that was originally in here into this as well, into that cavity that's going to be there, so that I can have twice as much speaker. I'm not sure how that's going to work, but that's why we do these things. I don't even know if the the SE parts will actually fit into the 5C, so that's going to be interesting too. I'm basically just going to see how many different parts we can swap over. Let's see. Just grabbing my toolkit. But anyways, my new shop that I've been working at for Mac stuff, he's actually authorized, which makes it really a different perspective, because I'm so used to just jerry-rigging so much stuff together because we just don't have the tools, just because Apple keeps that stuff so close to the vest, that they just don't allow us to have that kind of capacity, sadly. But let's see, there we go. So it's been good. The guy's a really good business guy. He definitely knows his crap, all his crap that he needs to know, to make sure that he's putting out good quality parts. Sales wise, I think he could definitely. Oh, I already took out the screws on this one. Whoops, gotta put those back in. That makes it easy. He just doesn't push himself business-wise because he's so busy doing like repairs and stuff. So what I've been doing whenever I go in there is he'll teach me on something, and then I've been creating articles essentially for them. It's basically just action books on how to do things. Which is fun. I enjoy organization and being able to keep things, organized and working just fine. The other reason for me wanting to get things more organized for him is that when we get like new employees and stuff, he doesn't have to sit there and explain it all day long to them until they get it in their heads. Instead, he can go reference this article. This is the steps to how to do this. This is our side. This is the Apple side. This is the red tape we have to take care of. And then just go from there, They don't have to re-explain stuff. I don't have to be told twice about things. I always forget to unplug the battery first. I usually just want to rip off the display because it's so annoying. No. The iPhone 5s, you didn't really have to worry about it, but the newer phones, some of them will, they have like residual charge, or if you don't unplug them correctly, the actual display will actually get fried, or not even just the display, the communication to the display. So the phone's basically dead. From what I can tell, you'd have to probably find the fuse that's associated, and then replace it wherever the heck that is, because it's going to require really tiny soldering, which I don't want to have to deal with. Come on. This iPhone 5C has one screw that doesn't like to be magnetically picked up, and it's so dumb. Can you just not be dumb? All right, let's take a look and see what kind of room we have in here. So let's see. Let's get into the other phone. Come on. So something interesting about the 5s is the home button actually doesn't have a cable to it. It actually has these little golden pins right there that when you sandwich the screen on top, they just make contact. because it didn't have really any smart functionality to it, like the Touch ID stuff like that, and it didn't have to have a fingerprint reader, which is kind of weird to think about in my head, because I'm like, wasn't there always a fingerprint reader? No, it was really that short amount of time ago. See, my first phone was the iPhone 5S, and I believe that one had a fingerprint reader in it, if I remember correctly. Come on, stop being stubborn. Come on. The other nice thing about these phones is it's a bad thing, but it's a nice thing, is they don't have adhesive to make it really difficult to pull these off, because you have to be really careful getting these things apart. So right here is a cable. That's actually the touchscreen cable, and if you just rip it off, you might actually rip it. There's usually a piece of metal on it, but I had really taken this phone apart at one point just to see how close the internals were to the iPhone 5, the C model, so I can see if I can change things over. Just get these screws out real quick. I'll show you what I'm talking about. Come on, just come out. Fine, I'll just leave that screw there. Unplug the batteries, we're good. Yeah, most people aren't buying these phones anymore just because they are so old and they're not being updated anymore. I kind of like having them just because I can use them as music players. Instead of using up my phone's battery throughout the day, I can just dump most of my media stuff through here, and then I don't have to, have my battery be dead by the end of the day. That's one of the downsides with Android, is that battery management isn't really a thing, and optimization quite like Apple's. Apple's does such a good job with this stuff. Especially if you're using one for just an iPod, you can turn on airplane mode, so that it forces it so that like location services don't run or cellular services don't run, which is really nice. So anyways, so differences from the two are actually pretty small. I think the batteries are pretty smooth. Yeah, the SE is a 5.9 watt hour. The C is a 5.7, so that's good. Headphone jack is a little bit different, it looks like, the way it's just configured. They had to make space for some components in there, it looks like, so I'll have to see if I can get those transferred or not, or at least secured enough. Those two look pretty darn close. The display connectors are pretty much exactly the same. Camera module is the same. I want to even put the camera in there just because it's so dumb to have, because I'm just, like I said, I'm not even going to be using this much. This top area is kind of interesting. It looks like it's a little bit different. But realistically, I just need to get, yeah, they did the vibration motor a little bit different, it looks like. If the vibration motor, which is right there, if I can get that to turn slightly, because I don't think, yeah, see this space right here that's next to it? I think that's from the display assembly. So if I can turn that a little bit, I might be able to make more room for it. I'm not sure. The problem is the speaker is like this big, I'm not sure if I'll be able to fit that all up there. Actually, I think the cellular part is up here as well. So I might be able to get away with just not connecting the cellular part at all, the antenna at least. I'd like to have the vibration motor just because it's nice to have when you're playing like video games and stuff. But if I have to, I'll just not put it in there. It's not ideal, but just make a small sacrifice. It's fine. In terms of wiring it up, I'm not sure how I'm going to accomplish that either. I think the speakers are just laid on top of something on the bottom. So I might just have to get some really thin wire to get to that part. But yeah, that'll be fun. But screens look exactly the same except for just that little Touch ID part to it. Oh no, they're actually, the connector pins are slightly off, it looks like. Let's see, so this was the old one. Oh no, I'm holding it upside down, that's why. Oh yeah, everything's like literally the same except for the top part, which is gonna be, I might have to cut a little bit out of the way to make it fit just right, but some minor adjustments. I don't think it's gonna be all that different from each other. It looks like the water indicator's in the same place. So I probably could just slap this screen on here directly and have it be just fine. In terms of my schoolwork stuff, I've been kind of put it on the back burner because with my new shop, like I said, I'm doing so many new things with there. Like training, I'm doing a ton of training stuff. I'm trying to see if I can optimize his workflow a little bit better as well, which is going to be a huge thing. He has a ton of just miscellaneous parts, that we could use towards another computer. A lot of it's older stuff though, which I don't foresee us really using much. So I'm basically going to create part numbers for everything. Sorry, I'm just going to tilt this back up. I need to create part numbers for everything, and then what box we're going to be putting it into, because he's going to be moving pretty soon. So I'm going to put stuff, all like the 2010 stuff in there, 2011, 2012, maybe all in the same box, because it's basically useless at this point. Like, we might be able to use it, but most people are just like, yeah, we could do this, but why? We'd rather just get you a new computer, those computers aren't getting the new updates anymore, so security wise it's not as good. They just start running slow unless you put an SSD in them, which I think we charge like $200 because the SSD is $50-$100, and then we charge $100 for labor. We're easily at $200, $250, depending on how nuts they want to go with hard drive storage. So it's really not worth it. You might as well just be getting, you can get a MacBook Air for like $500, $600, but have that last a lot longer instead. So I'm basically going to be creating a giant spreadsheet of parts we have, how they work, how good they work. So since we had a lot of MacBooks with like display issues, we're going to be planning on connecting them up to like 27-inch iMac screens, which we have a ton of, because a lot of 2010s and 2009 iMacs get donated to us because people they're not useful because they won't power on anymore, but the displays are still good. So we're going to figure out a way to connect the displays to the MacBooks. So we're basically going to have 27-inch MacBook Pros, which is going to be great. I think it's going to be hilarious to think about because, yeah, I wonder if we could hook up a hinge system, make them like foldables, anyways. This is why it isn't good that you can, when people let me be creative, because I will go overboard and figure out strange solutions to stuff. I mean, that's what I'm doing with this phone right now, is I'm figuring out, okay, can I fit 2 speakers in here? How much room can I make? Yeah, we'll figure this out. So give me like in a couple hours, I'll probably jump back online. See if we can get this these parts swapped over. Oh, I forgot about the buttons. I'm not sure how the buttons are going to transfer. I don't really use volume very much anyways. You just use your headphones, right? Anyways, we'll dig into this and see what kind of fun we can find. I'll talk to you guys later, or maybe next week. I don't know. Things are nuts. I'm working 6 days a week right now, so yeah, it's gonna be good. It's probably gonna be a couple hours of taking all this apart and seeing what we can do. Talk to you guys soon.